Hello and welcome to yet another edition of News 18 Yuva Bharat in association with IIMUN. And once again, we're talking at a time when we see a plateau and a drop in the active caseload and a huge surge in the number of recoveries. One of the concern areas is that we're continuing to lose a lot of our loved ones and a lot of people across the country. More than 4,000 deaths is an average, but we're hoping that this too will start coming down as the number of recoveries start mounting and the overall caseload comes down. Just about 8 or 9 days ago, there were more than 533 districts in our country which had more than a 10% positivity rate. That has now slipped to somewhere around 230, so which is also an encouraging sign that somewhere we are getting onto the over the bend as far as the second wave is concerned. But at this time, we will talk to people who have stepped up to help, who have not just stepped up to help, who have also turned aggregators, who have turned, and at various levels, at various parts of society, at individuals, as organizations they represent, they've come forward to help those in times of need because the system can do only so much. When you have a 10x kind of a surge and a pressure on our already fragile resources, in terms of medical infrastructure and health, well, society has to step up. And in this case, it's the Yuva who have stepped up. Joining us today, Gautam Raj Anand, the spokesperson of Mission Oxygen, is with us. We have Nikhil Taneja as a co-founder and CEO of Yuva and Yuva Volunteers. We also have Vishakha Sharma, Find a Bed, which is doing quite a lot of good work since IIMUN has put its might and muscle behind it and putting this effort. And we also have, when we say IIMUN, a perennial presence along with me on this show, Rishabh Shah, president of IIMUN. So first up, thank you very much and congratulations first up. I'm really, really proud of what all of you are doing at your own levels, what you've been able to do, whatever little or big the achievement, it's a matter of pride for me that we are all compatriots and we are all, I'm getting the chance to speak to all of you. But Rishabh, lead this conversation because you guys are doing a lot of work, there's a lot of effort that's been put in, and you've curated this group who I've interacted with at different levels and different people from these organizations at various levels. But go ahead.
I think first I'm just so glad that we do this. We do a Yuva Bharat show every weekend with CNN because with CNN News 18, and I'm so grateful to you and the entire team. In regards to these young superheroes, I think I'd let them start speaking for their initiatives. I've seen their work. I see their work on Instagram, even on ground. So many people keep coming and telling us, saying that this is the change that they're bringing about. So I'll start with the whole youth run setup that he's created, and it's creating a lot of not just noise, but it's creating a lot of change and impact. Um, Nikhil, what has your experience been? How take us through your journey?
First of all, thank you so much, Anand and Rishabh, for doing this. And really, again, I think I share the same emotion as you, Anand. Really proud to be part of this cohort at this point of time. I feel the only thing that is helping me sleep at night these days is to know that there are young people in the country who are doing everything they can to step up, who are actually, frankly, doing far more than our elected officials in most states. And are literally saving lives. I think they're superheroes. So just a little bit about my organization. So you as a youth media company, we've been working for the last 2.5 years on trying to create social impact in the lives of young people. We do a lot of content, we do research, we do campaigns, we have offline community activations. We work on important conversations for young people like mental health, gender equity, equality, LGBTQ rights. During the time of COVID, of course, I think it was very important for every young organization in our country to do what they could to step up in any way possible. So we ended up starting an initiative called Yuva Volunteers, which has actually, I mean, honestly, I can't even believe that in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we have managed to scale to over 500 volunteers who are active in different parts of the country, who are on a daily basis helping people who have SOS requests on the internet, who are in distress, connecting them with resources in 14 different regions of India. We have got doctors on call who are doing teleconsultations with people who cannot afford it. We are now working on starting vaccination camps in regions outside of cities. We are working now on expanding to Nepal because young people over there are facing a lot of problems, and all of this has been incredibly organic. It is absolutely completely inspired by young people. So I can't even, at no place can I take any credit for it because it is the young people who are leading us. I genuinely feel like, it's not our world they live in. I think we are living in their world right now. And I'm so grateful for that.
I'm very grateful for that, and so am I. All the young people who are trying to bring about change, and another young person who joins us, who's bringing about change in his own way. Bob 30 under 30, and so many other things to your credit. But this I think must be the most fulfilling thing, right? More than the companies that you create, the impact that you're being able to bring about through Mission Oxygen.
Oh, 100%. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. Also, Anand and Rishabh, this is such an inspiring panel to be on. After hearing, Nikhil's introduction on Yuva, I was already reading about it before this call. So grateful for you guys for the work that you guys do on a daily basis. The genesis of Mission Oxygen actually stems from community and people coming together. I'm very fortunate to be a part of it. So essentially, it was initiated with a group of entrepreneurs on just another WhatsApp group, as we're all on hundreds of WhatsApp groups on our phones. Essentially, people are sending helpless messages to one another saying that they don't have access to some medicine, or they don't have access to some equipment, or at the time plasma. And the primary request that was sort of coming up was the lack of access to oxygen. So this group was called Gurgaon Entrepreneurs Group, and essentially, two messiahs came forth, Lav Agarwal and Varun Agarwal, who had the amazing idea of trying to fill in the gap that was currently in the market. And then in typical startup fashion, in a span of about 6 hours, there were about 15, 20 volunteers that stepped up. Tasks were divvied up. Some folks took on the aspect of logistics. Some people took on the aspect of procurement. Some people tried to understand what was the requirement at ground level. So Google Forms were sent out to hospitals. We figured out what was the machine that was in deficit. We found out what was the specifications of that machine. Found out that there were oxygen concentrators that were needed, 10-liter oxygen concentrators that were CE certified and made by WHO manufacturers. These guys then found out who the primary manufacturers were in China, which would get to us at the quickest turnaround time. And this story sort of evolved and turned from there itself. Fast forward to today, Mission Oxygen is very lucky to have raised donations of north of 50 crores. We've been supported by organizations and companies across the country, across various different aspects. We have already procured north of 5,000 oxygen concentrators. 1,000 have been deployed to hospitals across public, private, NGO, institutions in the country. 1,000 more are being deployed as we speak. They've already reached the warehouse and are being deployed. These oxygen concentrators have reached north of 9 cities across various states in the country. And finally, we've also started setting up, as part of phase 2, oxygen generation plants. So we set up one at the Deen Dayal Upadhyay hospital in Delhi alongside the government, and another one we're setting up in Telangana alongside the government there. So that's basically what Mission Oxygen's been so far. Very excited about what's to come.
Excellent, and I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges. And before I come to challenges, because we faced our sets at Find the Bed and at IIMUN, but let me have the people who actually done it. I'm so glad Vishaka has joined. Vishaka, take us through Find the Bed.
Firstly, thank you for having me over here. And Find a Bed has been an initiative which I'm sure every youngster was looking up to, because we as youngsters, we really wanted to do something, help people, but we did not know how to, because apparently giving donations or something is not there. So, working on this initiative, I remember 72 hours, we accumulated data from around 446 cities, wherein it's an information repository wherein we accumulated data. And then not just this, but we just found out that there are 19,000 plus centers which are available, which quite others don't know about, and they're not fortunate enough to know that you can just get yourself cured by just self quarantining. So just to provide that facility, that was the aim of the Find a Bed. And now we actually could find around 6 lakh plus beds, not
Wow.
just like pan India, and just made the entire thing so possible. And right now it's available in 10 plus languages. So not just, if you know English, or maybe you know Hindi, Marathi, Telugu, any language, it's just available for people across. So glad to be a part of it, and I'm glad that it's helping people somewhere or the other.
Yes, super, super. And I'm so excited that all of you young people, and I'm going to hold this clip, right? I'm going to hold your clip. I'm going to play it again in the meeting, and I'm going to saying, this is what Vishaka said. 72 hours we did not sleep, so we can work without sleep for 72 hours again. But I'm sure Nikhil's going to do the same, and so also Gautam. But let me come to this, because we faced so many challenges, and from civil society, does this happen at different junctures? Have you faced criticism coming from civil society on something as noble as what you're trying to do, Nikhil? Because I see social media, I see what you're doing, and sometimes I see that despite all the effort, there is that 2%, 5%, 10% criticism that's coming in.
I even, like Gautam said, I did not know the language of all of this, 4 weeks ago. But now I know literally. I think even everybody who's looking for help knows the format in which to seek help. There is, you will have a patient name already coming in, attendant name coming in, requirement coming in, and in both ways, it's to show that how all of us have really come together at this time. Also, a little heartbreaking to know that this is the language of communication that we have now had to form within each other. I wouldn't say criticism, but I do. I mean, obviously, there is something to be understood at this point of time. People are in distress. There's a lot of emotional, trauma that a lot of people are going through on every side. So sometimes we have had situations where we've tried to help a patient's family, and somebody has gotten back to us who's not been able to be helped and said, you were looking and you couldn't help. This is on you. And there's a 19-year-old volunteer at the other end who's spent, a day and night trying to find that resource for them, but wasn't able to because there were none available. What do you really do at that point of time? How do you make peace with that when somebody from the other end kind of blames you for not doing enough? And honestly, I've told every volunteer, and I feel the biggest challenge at this point of time for us is also, to be honest, the mental health of all the volunteers. We are not really thinking about the burden and the toll that has been placed on them.
Mental health is a big challenge, and mental health of young people is, and especially they're very vulnerable, especially the teenagers, especially adolescents, young adults, all of these people, this category is most affected. The fact that for 1 year they've been sitting at home and yet been working. I'm so glad, Nikhil, you mentioned that, because like I said, I'm seeing the work that you're doing, and I completely empathize with what you just mentioned. And it's so easy to blame an 18-year-old. It's so easy to blame a 17-year-old saying this is what is wrong. But then again, these are the 17 and 18-year-olds who are stepping up in order to try to help people. And therefore, I think what you mentioned about getting, everybody working towards the same cause and everybody trying to appreciate each other for what they're trying to do, I think it's so very necessary. And I'm so glad the news channels are also now doing that, which
No, but I've listened to all of you very carefully today, and what you talked about, Nikhil, is very important. The only thing I know, you're getting mental health consultants, and you're worried about not just the volunteers' mental health, even your own mental health. Because you guys are also putting in a lot of effort, and you're out there to help people, and you're not there to listen to people's brickbats and to be abused and to be to get any sort of negativity. You're trying to help. But just need to step back and say that you have to be like a sponge that absorbs everything, but also lets out everything. So that's how you got to be. You got to be that filter. So you are that punching bag for that person who does not know how to express their emotion, but you just let it out, just wring it out of you, because it's not for you. It may be directed at you, but it's not meant for you. So you're just helping share the load, share somebody's emotional load, and you're just taking it on your head for a bit and then just dumping it. You're just putting it in the garbage. So that's the attitude, because the only measure for you to blame yourself is when you look in the mirror and say, did you do your 100%? So if you can look in the mirror and look yourself in the eye and say, yes, I did my 100% and I'm doing my 100%, the rest is not your controllable. Whether a person survives, whether a person does not survive, whether a person gets a bed, whether a person does not get a bed is not in your control. What's in your control is to try. So that is something which all of us have to realize. But the other aspect is that when you start doing something, have you guys realized this? That you sit down to do something, all of you have talked about it, how things start aggregating.
Mm.
You know, that's the best part. That you set something in motion and it starts aggregating. वो कहते हैं ना कारवां जुड़ता गया, हम तो बस कदम बढ़ाते गए, कारवां अपने साथ अपने आप जुड़ता गया. Did you realize? Did you feel that, Gautam?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and we've constantly been joking with one another, as I just mentioned, is that at the end of the day, this is possibly the most successful startup that any of us have been a part of, because in 20 days, we managed to raise capital. We managed to create very strong division of labor. We managed to deploy, and we had in terms of the a net promoter score, and in terms of impact reached, it was much larger than any EBITDA margins or any revenue that we were getting into our organizations or capital raise. So in terms of every variable that we were looking at, which we were already measuring our companies by, this one initiative that got so many founders to come together managed to outshine all of them in 20 days. And I mean, taking from what you said, at the end of the day, I think what's really beautiful about India as a nation is that we're a very resilient lot. Community comes to us very naturally. So for us to aggregate together also comes together very naturally. The sheer concept of love thy neighbor is inherent within us. It's not something that we need to learn. So it doesn't need to be written in necessarily in certain books. It's something that we're fairly born with.
Yeah, you can party non-stop for 72 hours. You can also work non-stop for 72 hours. So see, that's the swing, no? Both ends of the pendulum, Vishakha, you've been able to explore. You agree with Gautam, Vishakha?
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with him when he said that, we are fortunate enough that the neighbors are always around. So when we started the initiative, we had like around IIMUN people working on it, but eventually the community grew to a large extent. Like we have cause ambassadors, which are 7,000, like 7,000
Wow.
plus cause ambassadors and 9,000 plus volunteers coming together to work and join hands. So I totally agree with him. And yeah.
Like I think, like he said, this is our moment in order to fight something which requires a united front, and that united front is the bigger issue that we're dealing with is the pandemic. And the pandemic, if young people get together and challenge this, then I think it's definitely we're definitely going to be winning. I think India fights COVID is not about the politicians just doing their bit. It's not about the bureaucrats doing their bit. I think it's about young India coming together, and therefore I think all these young people doing their own bit in different organizations in different ways towards the same aim of fighting COVID is so very important.
That's true. And the other aspect, Nikhil, is that it also is a test of your mettle, isn't it? It's the test of the mettle for every Yuva who thinks that I'll step up and do. One is that they're showing the jazba or the attitude that they want to do it. The other is the moment they realize it's not a fad, there's some hard work involved, you automatically see those who are resilient, those who are doers, and those who are just, the showbazi or the showboating. So you don't have space for showboating here. It's only work that is going to talk. And that also tests the generation.
So yeah, absolutely, Anand. I just wanted to add to that because I've seen it live in front of me how these young people are not only showcasing their mettle, but going over above and beyond in ways I could not have imagined. I've seen young people who have had loss in their families, saying that I'm going to take a 6-hour break and then coming back after 6 hours. And I have been like requesting them, no, take your time off, you need to grieve, you need to process, saying, no, I couldn't help someone in my family, I want to now make sure that we don't lose any other person. There is a young boy from Assam who is part of our volunteer group who for 2 days, and at that time where plasma therapy was sort of okay, 2 days somebody was looking for plasma donors. This boy is trying heaven and earth to try and find it, wasn't able to, realize ultimately that he's also COVID recovered, has the same blood group, so he just said, I'm coming. Literally went to that hospital in another district to donate blood, to donate plasma blood for people who are in need.
There's another really amazing group of folks that I find more inspiring than anybody, and that are the nameless, faceless people that are working tirelessly, that aren't seeking limelight and are getting none, but are still doing all of the work that's required. Um, for example, I mean, just in Mission Oxygen, I'm lucky. I'm here having this conversation with you guys, and it's beautiful to see because you're also getting that ratification during these conversations that are taking place. But for example, we've tied up with this one organization named Om Logistics, nameless organization that's participated with Mission Oxygen without any seeking of glory. All right. What Om Logistics is doing is they are solely responsible for distributing oxygen concentrators that are being procured by Mission Oxygen to every corner of the country for free. They have not charged anybody a dime. They have taken oxygen concentrators to the most difficult of locations. They've unloaded these heavy machines, thousands of these heavy machines, loaded them back from the airport, taken them to the warehouse, loaded them off at the warehouse, loaded them back, made sure it reaches the right locations, loaded them off there again, make sure that they haven't been damaged in any scenario. And literally it's a completely thankless job, and that's the job that's saving millions, I mean, over time, millions of folks. Similarly, with our allocation team, for example, and Mission Oxygen, we have people sitting in a locked room in Gorakhpur that are figuring out which hospitals require help the most. And that's such a difficult Sophie's choice to make. Should I give oxygen concentrators here or here? When at the end of this day, fingers will be pointed at me for making this choice. And they've never seen the light, they haven't seen the light of day in the last 25 days, and they've just been tirelessly working. We've got people that are figuring out our next phase, should they have high flow nasal cannulas or BiPAP machines. And nobody knows who these folks are in Mission Oxygen, not because they don't deserve to be known, but they're not seeking that limelight. And I find these people more inspiring than anybody. Honestly, and they've been such sources of inspiration and power to myself during this process that I will remember those folks for the rest of my life. So yeah, I'd love to point them out.
I think our job is the easiest, no, Gautam? I think yours, mine, and Nikhil's job is the easiest in terms of, when it comes to speaking and being the face of, being the faces in different ways and in different areas.
Yeah,
but the real people on ground that actually make a difference. And somebody in Jaipur, we are moving to phase 2, which is building COVID centers, right? So we were first making beds, like, making a repository of all COVID centers for mildly symptomatic and asymptomatic patients. And now we're moving to building COVID centers per se. So and it's all again young people. So Nikhil, we yet try to keep them at home and say that you can't go and do it. And then we put it on the group the same way that you're talking about the community, saying how many of you would like to build the first COVID center? And you won't believe it. There's a core group of about 250 odd people. Everyone's responded, me. And I'm like, but did you check with your parents? You're not yet an adult. That's the whole thing, right? Like it's that kind of enthusiasm, and this kind of enthusiasm when it comes about. Now, I don't know how many COVID centers actually get built in terms of, mildly quarantined, for mildly symptomatic patients. But even if we were able to build a few, because of these young people, these nameless people, like you said, that company that is doing such a wonderful job with Mission Oxygen, what even Nikhil mentioned about the young boy from Assam, these are the people who actually deserve the maximum credit. I'm just so grateful that we are part of this conversation and having this conversation about such nameless warriors who are actually the real frontline warriors today as well. But Vishaka, your thoughts? You've been working on this, hands-on. Just the three of us may be responsible in some way, but you are somebody who's also worked hands-on on this. What are the biggest challenges that you face? Your friends face? Do you guys get tired? Is there a time that you try to switch off? You need to switch off?
Honestly, if it was work, you get tired, but this is not work, so we didn't get tired. And the challenges was actually finding.
So you're basically saying IIMUN is work, find a bed is not.
The information, like finding things. So basic challenges over here which we faced on Find a Bed was actually verifying data. A lot of time what happened is we found data which was available, but it wasn't the true data. So verifying that and getting it done in specified number of days was a bit task, but eventually the team came together and we've done it really well, I believe. So that was in the process, and yeah, we just got through it, and working on it was never tiring. Never thought of taking breaks, Rishabh, never.
Well, it's fantastic. I think I would like to continue this conversation, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done, and we also have paucity of time. So, what I'm going to say is congratulations to all of you. Keep the chin up, keep the faith up, and I think these are every time. I think every generation should be put through a certain test at different levels, not like a pandemic every time, but yeah, the youth should be tested so that we know that the future is in good hands. Right now, it just feels good that it is in good hands, and these are the doers of today will also become perhaps the thinkers and the planners and perhaps the leaders of tomorrow, and that's what I'm very very encouraged about. Great job done. Kudos to all of you. Thank you very very much. Wonderful having this conversation.